Shane's bullying led to my confrontation, recording his admission of guilt. He lost his job, benefits, and ultimately his life. Let me begin this narrative by stating that I originally intended to take revenge on the individual in this account. However, the aftermath of the eventual confrontation caused the previously mentioned repercussions, rather than my immediate actions. I am employed in the United Kingdom at a prominent technology firm, providing software support. I belong to a team with members located globally. I have been in this position for approximately 10 years, and apart from the significant challenges I faced with this person, I genuinely appreciate my role. When I first joined the company, I would not categorize myself as naive. I possessed around 7 years of industry experience. While I was undoubtedly unfamiliar with the organization, the position I was appointed to involved technologies that I was quite proficient in. The message I wish to communicate is that I was not entirely unaware of all the applications our company offered support for. Everyone on my team, which consisted of about 30 members, was friendly and eager to assist with the exception of Shane. Shane could be described as the team expert, roughly 5 years away from retirement, and as entrenched in the workplace as office furniture, metaphorically, since we all work from home, having been with the company for nearly 4 decades. Everyone regarded Shane as the only person to consult when you found yourself in a serious dilemma. During my initial days, I indeed found Shane to be extremely knowledgeable, and more often than not, he had answers to the most obscure queries. Everything was functioning smoothly, and our team operated effectively. Over time, I became acquainted with the rest of the team, primarily through phone communication, and my closest friend was a woman named Mel. She was of a similar age and level of experience as Shane, and in my view, she was equally as knowledgeable. One day, Mel and I were on a short call discussing a work-related matter when we began to engage in social conversation. We exchanged details about ourselves and the team. I mentioned that I had yet to meet anyone in person, and that was when she shared that she had met Shane face-to-face a couple of years prior. Both of them were based in the United States, while I was in the UK, and they had attended a technology conference in New York. She mentioned that he had serious health issues due to his weight around 450 pounds, and that when at home, he often relied on oxygen and medication. His plan was to hold on until he could retire early to avoid worrying about paying for his health care. That seemed like a reasonable plan to me, and we soon switched topics. The problems began roughly 2 years into my employment with the company. We started steering towards a new direction regarding the applications we were planning to offer customers, and as a result, we underwent training for a range of new technologies. I saw this as a fantastic opportunity. If no one on our team had experience with the new software, I would be on equal footing with everyone. I dedicated significant time and effort to learn as much as possible, while Shane showed little interest in the new tools and continued to focus primarily on the legacy systems. In team meetings, it was evident that he was becoming increasingly frustrated as his status as an expert started to diminish. This was purely a matter of professional adaptation, which is essential in the software industry. As time progressed, it became evident to the team how much effort I was investing, and I was well on my way to becoming the go-to person for the new software. During this period, Shane began to undermine me whenever possible. For instance, if I was late to a meeting due to an extended customer call, he would interrupt the discussion to make snide remarks such as, "Oh look, Ordo's Deluxe finally decided to join us," despite having done the same previously. This behavior extended to email threads as well. Nearly anything I sent that included him and our supervisor would attract his irrelevant and unrelated complaints, which had nothing to do with the actual topic. One day, Mel reached out to me, inquiring about my conflict with Shane. I, honestly, informed her that I had no personal issues with him. He simply appeared to have a vendetta against me. She offered to keep an eye out for any information regarding the situation. This pattern continued for a couple of years. I remained the preferred contact for the new software, while he persisted in attempting to undermine me, trying to cast me in a negative light. One day, we faced a significant incident that could have potentially cost the company millions in service-level agreement penalties if not resolved promptly. Our manager split us into teams to investigate specific aspects, and unfortunately, she paired me with Shane. I was not pleased about this arrangement, but I considered myself a professional. We initiated the call to tackle the issue. As the conversation progressed, it became glaringly apparent why he held animosity towards me. He was completely ignorant about the new application. He had accomplished no work on it whatsoever. Anything I requested him to verify required extensive guidance, even for the simplest tasks. Ultimately, I decided to share my screen, instructing him to observe my actions. I delved into the system's internals, sifting through numerous logs, explaining my every move along the way, and finally identified that the issue stemmed from a recent patch we had applied. At this juncture, he disconnected from the call. I did not think much of it at that moment, given that we use Skype for business, which can be unreliable, so I continued my process. Our protocol dictated that we should not roll back any changes until approved by the senior manager. Since I was responsible for applying and rolling back patches, I noted what actions we needed to take, then rejoined the main call. I had no concerns, believing that issues with patches were not unusual. They simply did not usually have such severe repercussions. Unfortunately, as soon as I re-entered the call, I was sharply criticized by the incident manager. Apparently, Shane had returned to the group call and informed the participants that the outage was due to a mistake I had made during the deployment process, claiming that he had instructed me on the proper remedy, yet I refused to act on it immediately. I was livid. He had accurately identified the cause of the problem, as it was I who had literally demonstrated to him how to locate it. I had even naively suggested to him what I believed would resolve the issue. Due to his lengthy tenure at the company, only our immediate team comprehended the reality of who possessed the superior skills in this circumstance. His historical reputation still held considerable influence over those who did not interact with him on a daily basis. Given the importance of this incident, over 100 individuals joined the call, several being 2 or 3 levels of management above our team. He portrayed me as a reckless, incompetent fool, and his claims were accepted. Despite my manager's objections, I faced disciplinary action and received a verbal warning. Meanwhile, Shane was applauded for helping avert a potential catastrophe and was awarded a commendation. My anger was overwhelming, and shortly after, Mel called me again. It seemed Shane had been boasting to her about putting that smart-mouthed punk in his place. She expressed shock and questioned what he meant. His real grievance was that he believed I had disrespected him by attempting to assume his role as the go-to person for the new software. That was never my intention. I did not believe it was my fault that he was too lazy to engage with the work. I lamented to Mel that she should have recorded the call. She laughed, pointing out that Skype notifies users when a call is being recorded, and he would never have been so open while being recorded. Then, a brilliant idea struck me. I resolved to confront Shane one-on-one. I messaged him on Skype, indicating that I wanted to have a discussion. He replied with a smiley and simply said, "Sure." I initiated the call and informed him that I was recording our conversation. The Skype notification appeared to inform all participants of the recording. I went straight to the point, accusing him of dishonesty regarding the significant incident and asserting that it appeared he had a personal issue with me. As anticipated, he denied everything and stated he was disappointed that I felt compelled to react in this manner. He mentioned that he would need to speak with our supervisor about this. I interrupted him, turning off the Skype recorder. I then stated that Skype was no longer recording and that he was fully aware of his wrongdoing. At this juncture, he dropped his facade, claiming he was entirely justified in putting me in my place. He asserted that respect should be given to those who had been employed longer in such positions, and he would not hesitate to do it again. Without holding back, I labeled him a relic, resistant to adapt to the changing landscape, and determined to coast through the remainder of his career without making any effort. He responded by saying that he was only a couple of years away from retirement and that he refused to exhaust himself for shiny new software. I asked him if he had heard of OBS, to which he responded that he had not. I suggested he look it up on Google. I then hung up the call. Shortly thereafter, the messages began pouring in. He pleaded with me not to utilize the covert recording I had made. He warned that if he were terminated, he would forfeit his retirement benefits and medical coverage. I told him to take a hike and that he should have thought about that before attempting to get me dismissed. I reported the entire situation to the appropriate channels without fully considering the ramifications. The wheels were set in motion, and a few weeks later, following a company investigation, he was let go. I learned from Mel that he had requested early retirement to preserve his benefits, but this was apparently denied. Eventually, it became known that he was burdened with substantial debts and had relied on his retirement package to remain financially stable. Without employment or benefits, he found himself unable to afford the necessary medical treatment he urgently required. He was unable to seek new employment, as his skills had stagnated to the point where he couldn't even secure a job online. Mel later informed me that he passed away approximately 6 months after this ordeal due to his ongoing health complications. I grappled with these events for quite some time. Sharing that recording undoubtedly played a role in his demise, yet I remain uncertain about how deeply I feel about it. As a young professional striving to advance my career, I recognized that he actively sought to sabotage me. Perhaps I should have hesitated when he begged me not to reveal the truth, but he was old enough and savvy enough not to engage in the petty games he played. Had I known this would lead to his death, I might have approached the situation differently. This is a memory that continues to linger, that is for sure. I am still with the company, and I can assure you that I will never treat a new employee the way he treated me. Perhaps breaking that cycle is the silver lining to emerge from all of this. Story 2. I quit my job after a fake write-up. Later, my former boss lost his promotion and got his friend fired due to my comeback. This incident occurred quite some time ago. I was in high school and secured a position at one of the large retail outlets in the computer section. This store chain had an internal technician department, which was always my aspiration. After working diligently in sales for 2 years, enduring disrespectful customers, absurd policies, and all the other typical aspects of retail employment, I finally had the opportunity to be promoted to the technician department. It was not as appealing as I had anticipated. I soon learned that most of the repairs involved running a pre-packaged antivirus software, updating Windows, and performing data backups before erasing computers and reinstalling their operating systems. I had always preferred working with hardware, but since 80% of our customers had laptops and those repairs were considered too complicated by the corporation, we would merely send the laptops out for repair by a third-party vendor. Nonetheless, it was still vastly superior to sales, and we had a fantastic team in the technician area, with the exception of one individual, let's call him Mike. He always acted as though his problems were inconsequential. Technically, he was a lead technician, and although that merely signified he had a bit more authority, he had access to a corporate account to manage the shipping of computers to and from our store. He behaved as if he were the manager of the department. However, our actual manager was a great guy who looked out for us, so Mike's arrogance did not trouble us too much. Fast forward a bit, and our excellent manager found a much better job. This opened a vacancy for the manager position, and given that the entire store's supervision was undergoing a restructuring, the general manager had been dismissed for embezzlement, and nearly all of the managers he hired were under review. Everyone was trying their hardest not to make mistakes. The new general manager decided that since our department was among the best in the district, he would not seek an outsider, but instead promote from within. At that time, Mike had been employed at the store for nearly a decade, and a few individuals who had started working with him as sales associates had by then become managers and assistant managers. One of them, Brittany, was an assistant manager responsible for customer service and checkout. One of the conditions for Mike's official promotion to manager was to maintain the #1 position in the district performance-wise. One key metric was the rejection rate from our third-party vendor. If we inadvertently sent them a software issue to fix, they would charge us additional fees. Mike became fixated on the numbers. Especially concerning the rejection rate, he insisted that we invest extra time confirming issues, even in light of recalls from manufacturers for those items. I despised this bureaucracy, as it meant that customers had to wait nearly the maximum allowed time to retrieve their computers. So, on a few occasions, I skipped the additional diagnostics when I was certain the problem was hardware-related. One day, Mike decided to audit all outgoing units and discovered that I had sent 4 machines without performing his extra checks. He informed me he would write me up for it, but when he attempted to do so, the general manager told him that he was not yet a manager, and I had demonstrated to the GM that I adhered to corporate procedures in diagnosing those units. I believed that was the end of the matter, but I was gravely mistaken. Mike resented that I proved to the GM that his procedure was ineffective and that he was denied authority over me. About a month later, I received a phone call from Mike requesting that I come to the store on my day off due to an issue with a customer. When I arrived, Mike greeted me with a smug smile and told me to wait in the back and refrain from working on any computers. After roughly an hour, Mike and Brittany entered and asked me to go to the front office. They initiated an official write-up process, claiming I had erred in creating a backup of the customer's data and had returned a box to the customer containing a DVD with no data, then wiped his PC clean. I knew that this was false, as I always transferred the data to an external hard drive, ran antivirus programs to ensure no harmful material was copied over, and then burned DVDs. Yet, when I requested to check the external hard drive, Mike said that because of my negligence, I was barred from re-entering the tech area. He proceeded to check the hard drive and claimed there was nothing on it. At that moment, I realized he was lying, but both he and Brittany were determined to complete the write-up. I requested that senior management be present, but was denied again. It turned out the GM was on vacation. They finished the write-up and informed me that due to the serious error that cost the company tens of thousands of dollars, I was prohibited from working in the tech area and would be reassigned to the sales floor. I told them to take it and submitted my resignation immediately. Later, I discovered that a week following my departure, they provided the customer with the data that had been on the hard drive all along. Mike had simply erased the DVDs. I had mistakenly grabbed a DVD RW for that backup and waited for the customer to return and complain. I also contacted the corporate HR line and reported what had transpired. They indicated that since I resigned without giving notice, they would not initiate an investigation, but they had recorded my complaint. By chance and due to my skills as a hardware technician, I secured a position at a shop specializing in hardware repairs a week later, commencing in another week. Interestingly, this depot was the service center for the entire district, and they held the master contract with the large retail chain where I had worked. Having worked as the technician at that store, I was already well versed in their labeling and ticketing system for tracking purposes. The label included the store and technician numbers. After a few weeks, I built up some goodwill in my new role and began exchanging units with my colleagues to work on as many items from my previous store as possible. Over the subsequent 3 months, I ensured that every single unit sent in by Mike would return with an additional charge. Additionally, it turned out that Mike, since he was responsible for shipping, would sometimes steal other technicians' tickets to inflate his performance numbers to secure that managerial promotion. Well, that ultimately backfired on him. There was one particular week when he sent in more than 15 units out of 20 for repairs, and consequently, 15 units returned with additional software charges. I also meticulously documented records that showed Mike did not adhere to his own policy of conducting extra checks. When the performance statistics for that quarter were released, the store plummeted from first place to fifth. Mike failed to receive his promotion and the substantial bonus that had been promised to him. A good friend of mine from the store secured the manager position a few months later, and I advised him on how to reduce the number of software charges to nearly zero, enabling him to appear exceptional. Mike was first reassigned to lead technician, and then he was either terminated or resigned. I'm uncertain. The last I heard, he started his own mobile technician business, which failed after a year. What I was unaware of was that this entire episode involving Mike's blunders prompted the GM to review everything Mike had done, including my write-up and dismissal. As it turned out, they hadn't even documented the write-up since I had quit on the spot, and they had buried it. The only reason the GM found it was due to the HR complaint filed against both Mike and Brittany. The GM was not pleased that they attempted to remove someone behind his back and consequently terminated Brittany. He was a very decent man who contacted me later that day, apologized, and even offered me my old position back. I expressed my gratitude, but informed him I was earning more in my new role and didn't have to deal with customers, so I declined. Summary: a jerk and his companion fabricate a false reason for my demotion. I sabotage his statistics to prevent his promotion and bonus. Additionally, I also get his friend terminated. Edit: thank you for the recognition.